There we go.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Clown Show. I'm your host, Ed, along with co-hosts Justin and Brad. Excited for another week of coming to you live with what we have going on around the Clownhead community. We are further along in the Elite Eight as it's drafting along, and excited to have Justin with us today, who is part of the B division that's all finished. They got done with not only the vet startup draft, which every other division is still in, but they finished up the rookie draft as well in about 10 days or something, or maybe after a week.
Less than that. Less than that.
Yeah,
we were
than
flying through 4 or 5 rounds a day. We were knocking them out quick.
Beautiful. Well, so what was the secret, Justin, in the Elite Eight and the B division? How did you guys get 5 rounds a day when everybody else gets about 3 picks a day, I think?
Well, we were just, trying to get everyone in line. Well, I shouldn't say in line in case they watch this, but, just try to get everyone, on and pick in and keep going. Just try not to hold up the line for the other guy. It seems like probably during the day we might do a round and a half done, and we picked it up in the evening between about 6 and 9 p.m. Central time. It seems like when everybody was on, we would just fly through everything.
See, I thought that you guys just didn't have any international people, where the rest of us were trying to get people up from Australia, trying to get them drafted. And we have a guy in Division A that he's like getting up at 3 a.m. his time just because it's like 8 p.m. East Coast time, and he's drafting like on his bathroom break in the middle of the night. Like, I mean, that's the stuff we have going on. Brad, what's going on in Division C where you are?
It's definitely going. It's been a little bit slower the last couple days, but it's been picking up lately. I don't know.
Did you pick Tim Patrick yet?
Tim Patrick's been picked, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna take him. Okay. Yeah, I know we didn't really focus on that last week.
Nah. But I've just been trying to keep going young, especially in the later rounds. But
gotcha. So, Justin, you have a complete team now. You're our first guy to have the complete team as part of our commits group. What's your team look like? Are you going to win this year? Are you going to win next year? Or are you going to win every year?
I don't know. Hope I'm winning every year. That the winning pot is pretty nice. So be nice to win. But I kind of took a different approach to this draft than my other draft. I was able to snag Jonathan Taylor in the first round at 1.09. And I was like, yes, I finally got him. And so, you know what? I got my my number 1 running back. So I'm going to follow up with my next 2 rounds and take 2 of Mac Jones with my 2nd and 3rd pick. And I was hoping that Jalen Hurts would actually fall another spot, which he went right before my pick in the 2nd round. So I would have gotten a little better of my number 1 quarterback, but I think Tua can have a pretty good chance this year in putting together some decent numbers. Now that he has a pretty good wide receiver core, I think. And then I followed up with pairing up Tua with Waddle with my 4th pick. I thought that was Waddle in the 4th round. I thought he dropped a little too far for where I got him. They're out in 9 slot. And then I was able to get Michael Pittman, another young rookie, there with my 5th pick. And with all the other drafts I've done, I didn't think I was going to be able to get him there in the 5th round. And I was looking for that third receiver. And with all the other rookie picks that I've been following and doing about because the first pick and the second pick was already off, I was thinking, you know what, I'm going to take a rookie pick. Maybe I'll get lucky and have maybe the Drake London follow me there at the third, or even the running back from Seattle, Kenneth Walker. I mean, pair him up with that. I don't think Kenneth Walker is going to be too much of too effective within the first few games of the season. But I end up selecting the kicker there to go after one of those two guys. And luckily in the rookie draft, I ended up getting Drake London there at with the third pick in the rookie draft, which I really liked. I've seen him go first and second, and this is like the second, third time that I've seen him actually fall to the 3 spot, which I loved, and so I scooped him up there. And then I decided to go ahead and shore up my third quarterback with Davis Mills. And well, with Davis Mills and how he finished up last year, I think he has a really good chance on being a solid number 3, just for those backs.
Getting in there and getting 3 in this, I feel like you have to get 3 quarterbacks in here just to compete with 2 starting spots. You don't want 0. Like best.
Yes.
That's what I think you'll see from the winning teams. I mean, I'm going to speculate a couple things because I came up with the scoring, so I guess I have a little bit of an advantage of what I expect to happen. And I'd say that you got to avoid 0. So quarterback is a key position because there's a limit. There's 32 on the non-bye weeks, and there's probably 28 portion of the weeks of people that actually get points. So if you figure that you can't take a 0, like if you pluck in a backup quarterback, the likelihood of them getting any points, I mean, maybe if it's like Marcus Mariota last year or Taysom Hill last year, you have a prayer at points when they're not a starting quarterback, or Jacoby Brissett, like last year, those guys came in on goal line stuff, but to have them come in on the goal line on the right week when you had to start them is really a crapshoot. So I think that quarterback is a key spot to have that third one. And if you have a good third one like Mills, I think you're onto it. And I think that's what you'll find as we go there. And yeah, I think starting out, it feels like you had a good building plan. And I think that's what, as we look, and you stayed young. I mean, one of the things that I took away from your roster was you stayed young. So it didn't matter if, you missed out on Hurts, but then you just took Tua. So you could fluctuate where you need to go. And you said another comment that I think is important for people that are just kind of looking at how to come up with a draft strategy is when people fall further than they should, you scoff them up. And Brad and I have been fortunate enough in this kind of a draft to sit on the end. And what we try to do, and as you guys will kind of break down 4 teams for me tonight and some of the drafts that I did back in 2020 with a particular philosophy, and we'll get into that, is that what you're trying to do is create runs, not jump in at the end of runs. So when you're on an end, 1s, 12s, at the end of those rows, you can create, even from the 2 spot at the end or the 11 spot, you can create runs. When you double tap, and you'll notice probably almost every time when I'm on an end spot, I take 2 of the same position on the turf, because what it does is it creates this frenzy the next time around. And I don't take people in most cases that I want people to take that position before it gets back to me. And so I will take a position that I'm expecting to start a run on. And what that'll do is it'll make another position fall to me, because they'll subliminally get in their mind that, oh, I've got to get a tight end, or I've got to get a quarterback, or I've got to get a running back. And then we're going to look at a strategy that's called all-in quarterback. And everybody that I draft with, they focus on, oh, this is the guy that drafts all these quarterbacks, and he messes up the draft because he just drafts all these quarterbacks. But really, it's a fade wide receiver draft. It's a fade wide receiver draft. And the reason is it's not because I hate wide receivers. And in the Elite Eight and all the Clownhead leagues, we have 4 receivers starting. So I'm trying to add value to the receiving core anywhere I can. Like that's my best shot at making receivers valuable. 4 starting, 48 a week. That's really something. That's something that matters. But I believe you still can always pull receiving points late. Doesn't matter. There will always be that receiver that, where did Hunter Renfrow get drafted last year? Or what round? Like, in the 20s probably.
Yeah.
And he finished a top 24 receiver for sure. Like, but where did he get drafted? Like, there's always Hunter Renfrow. There's always Jamison Crowder. There's always Cole Beasley. Like, think about those slot guys that are just every year there's a different one of those guys.
Oh, yeah.
And so picking those kind of guys up, you can always pick the free squares. Now you say, well, maybe I won't guess right. That's true. Probably won't guess right, but take them all. One of them's going to do it, like take them all. Like they're 22, 23, 24. Last year, I made a living drafting Deebo Samuel. Now this year, he's the hottest commodity. The year before, I made a living drafting Mike Williams. Last year, he was a hot commodity, and that's kind of how those kind of things work. So as we look at all-in quarterback, we're going to look at that, and we're going to have you guys look at these 4 teams that and I pulled them out of the hat, really. So all 4 of these teams drafted the summer of 2020, drafted heavy quarterback. The first team we're going to look at is FD Deuces Wild. I'm not the commissioner of any of these teams, these leagues, so I didn't come up with a scoring. I didn't come up with any of it. I just kind of play along. And this team drafted 10 quarterbacks back in 2020. And I guess I'd like to know from you guys. So I want to throw this out there. Fantasy Pro says this is the best team in the league. They have it ranked number 1, like they have their little ranking thing, and they say this is the best team in the league. So I didn't make it up. Like it really must be okay, apparently. You'll notice on this team, 7 players have to be cut, and some people would be like panicked about that. I'm just waiting for guys to get hurt. Like, it sounds really cruel, but you know what? Somebody's going to get hurt, and we're just going to put them on the IR because we got IR spots, I guess. I mean, like that's, I don't know if any other fantasy manager is waiting for the injuries and just so he can have IR spots. But, there are guys here to cut, I'm sure. But, I figure, hey, let's just wait and see where the IR spots are, and then we'll cut accordingly. So what do you guys think? What are your takeaways from FD Deuces Wild? And, we'll start with you, Brad. You haven't said much tonight, so what do you think about FD Deuces Wild?
I mean, I definitely think it's a strategy that gets the league talking, drafting all quarterbacks. They'll definitely think you're the villain, but I think the team, all in all, turned out pretty good. Like, you ended up selling a couple of those quarterbacks, I believe, last year and getting some picks and stuff, and you were able to turn it into a team that's just young at every position, which means everything. Like, it doesn't matter how you draft in the startup, it matters how your team ends up, really. Like, so I think you did a pretty good job creating a team for the long run.
As you take a look at it, Justin, what are your takeaways? This is maybe one of the first times you've seen this team, so you can really be a fresh set of eyes on what it looks like.
Oh yeah, exactly. With drafting, I think it was that I saw 10 quarterbacks. I mean, who does that though? Not many people do it. It's for the faint of heart, I think, in my opinion. For the faint of heart, but I think it's a good, bold strategy, and to get the league going. I mean, it's going to make some people mad, yes, absolutely, but it gives you some abilities to make some decent trades later, and to have the depth and to be able to go long term with it.
And at the same time, like in a league like that, like when you have a majority of the QBs, like they're kind of forced to make trades with you to be competitive themselves anyway. So it kind of works out in your favor no matter way you kind of put it, you know.
Absolutely.
So this team, and just to be fair, this team, while it had a lot of quarterbacks, and that's an important distinction, it didn't have a lot of top end quarterbacks, and it really, I started with running back from the 12 spot. So and I guess the point of it is it had a lot of backup quarterbacks that didn't matter if they ever were anything. So this team from the 12 spot, I took Josh Jacobs and Miles Sanders at the end of the first, beginning of the second. And then my third, fourth swing, it wasn't third round reversal. Daniel Jones, Drew Lock. So just start thinking about those first four picks. And then James Conner. Now that looks a lot better today than it did back in 2020, if you think back to those Pittsburgh days. And as I'm just kind of going down here, Chark and Hollywood Brown, I mean, you know, whatever, they're still on the team. And so Mitch Trubisky was my third quarterback in the ninth round. So it was, while it ended up with 10 quarterbacks, by the ninth round, I'm with Mitch Trubisky, Drew Lock, and Daniel Jones. So it wasn't really about quality quarterbacks. It was about number of quarterbacks. And as you see on the existing roster, those quarterbacks are still around. Like, I didn't really move those quarterbacks. I traded Josh Jacobs for picks, and I just kind of created, you know, draft picks that turned into guys like, and then at the end of the roster to get there, PJ Walker, Robert Griffin III, Brett Hundley, Chad Henne, McCarron, and Colt McCoy. Those were the quarterbacks to make up 10. Like, it wasn't anybody that was any good. It was more just guys that I could sell for second and third round picks when they became starters. And those second and third round picks became things that I pushed forward another year to become first round picks. And I was active to make those things happen. But today that has like Kyle Pitts, and I'm probably most proud of this team with the tight end room. It starts 2 tight ends. My 3 tight ends for 2 positions: Hawkinson, Pitts, and Freiermuth. I mean, like, I feel like that's a tight end room, start 2, that even if one of those guys gets hurt, we're okay. You know, we still have two pretty good ones. Like, you know, 2 top 12, and basically 3 top 12 tight ends in a 2 tight end starting league. And while the quarterbacks now with Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson aren't wonderful, they're both young and have a chance. And then if you put Daniel Jones with that, and you know, it's just kind of numbers like that have created, and that's where I think it is. But people focused on that number of 10 quarterbacks, like, oh, it was like Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like, that shouldn't make anybody's needle move at all. But it, for whatever reason, it creates this frenzy that you guys have seen being in drafts with me. It creates a frenzy, and it's not really that big of a play, except for that it just creates a frenzy. Like, it doesn't really make that much difference. Like, Ryan Fitzpatrick being on your team or not is not going to win anything. You know, let's be honest. Like, Mitch Trubisky being on your team isn't going to win anything. And he was my third quarterback on that team. Drew Lock sucks. Like, it's almost hard for me to believe that the team is good. It's just, if I didn't tell you it was good. But when you get to draft Breece Hall and Gibson, and then, you know, we got Pittman here. I was kind of laughing when Justin was saying, because you're going to see Pittman on a couple of these rosters. And he was that second round pick that I traded guys like Joe Flacco for. And I get Pittman out of the deal. Like, just think that through. Like, that's what backup quarterbacks do for me. They get me Michael Pittman. Like, that's why I fade wide receivers, because I know that Colt McCoy turns into Michael Pittman or T. Higgins. Like, that feels like a good move to me. And it's okay if you don't want to give me that pick for Colt McCoy, then you probably won't score 0 points on that given week, and you won't win. I don't know, like, you know, and that's kind of magic. Like, it's cool. I'll just drop him. How about that? You know, like, it doesn't really matter to me that much. Like, when he's done starting, we just drop him. It's pretty cool. It doesn't, you know, it's more just committing to that cup and using the bench spots to really create a place where there isn't a wide receiver alive that can turn into to Michael Pittman on a given week just because that's on the waiver wire, like one of those backup quarterbacks. So I guess that's where I go. So I digress. We'll look forward to fantasy FF11. The addiction is real, and this is the same exact commissioner, same exact scoring, just another team that I kind of did the same thing with. But in this team's case, I did start quarterback, I believe, in the draft. But just take a peek at this one, and another case study. I was looking at it, and this one started with 9 quarterbacks. So you get the theme here. Like, we started with 9 quarterbacks. They all probably stink because Joe Burrow was one of those quarterbacks, and he was the rookie pick in this draft, which was separate. So, and actually, this is a pure example of what Justin mentioned earlier. I got Joe Burrow at 103 in a rookie draft. So Tua went 1, CEH went 2, and then they just left me Joe Burrow at number 3. And I mean, I could have taken Jonathan Taylor there too. So I mean, there would have been spots, for stuff. But basically, I got Burrow at 103. So value just fell. That's what we'd say. You just scoff up the value, right? I mean, that
Exactly.
So anyway, that's kind of what we have here. And again, this team has Kyle Pitts on it. Like, I mean, I guess you can say, well, maybe that's a lucky pick, but it was just basically with this team, it might not even win this year. I mean, it has Burrow and Lawrence as quarterbacks, but even if it doesn't, it's got 4 first-round picks in 23. So we got to figure out how to drop 14 players over the limit right now, which, I mean, there are some junk players here, but there's also guys like Drake London just sitting down there on the bench, like, okay, whatever. Like, and I guess the point of this is we start 3 receivers. I've got McLaurin, DJ Moore, and then Burks, but then there's all kinds of receivers below that. Dubs if we want to use him, or if he comes on, Tony, and then guys like Dotson and Drake London. Like, there's enough of receivers there that I don't feel like, oh man, I didn't go get Cooper Kupp. Like that, or I don't feel like this disadvantage of not having receivers. So I guess I would always encourage you to say, hey, that you'll find receivers later. Like, you can always find that. Now, important for me to point out, because you guys that know me know that, hey, I drafted in a redraft league and a best ball league, and I did start with receivers because there wasn't the ability to use trades or waivers. So in best ball, you got to play a lot different than in a game where you can work the waiver wire and recycle. I mean, where I feel like receivers are the easiest thing to pull off the waiver wire, because the likelihood of finding Amon-Ra St. Brown is pretty high, even in a deep league. Like, that's a pretty high. In most leagues, you could find Hunter Renfrow last year. Like, really, guys, right? I mean, just like, even in the deepest of deep leagues, we could have found Conklin at tight end last year, or a tight end from Tennessee. You guys can help me. He was the backup tight end from Tennessee that scored all the points.
Michael Pruitt.
Well, Pruitt did, but there was another one too. And I that.
Is it Donald Parham?
Well, Parham in San Diego, yeah, did well.
Okay.
Yeah, in LA now. Yeah, my bad. So yeah, that's so you can always find those tight ends. I mean, even a running back, you can get lightning in a bottle. Duke Johnson was a winner for a lot of people late last year too. But I always think that you can find that receiver, whether that be Guyton or Doolin from Indy, like, you can always find somebody. I even jumped on somebody from Pittsburgh late last year and got 8 points out of him. He caught 4 for 40, and it got me 8 points. And the guy was like off the practice squad on a Monday night, just to make sure I got points. So I guess I put that out there. Gonna run through the next 2 teams real quick so that we don't get too long. And really, show me your TDs. Another team this team, while most people would say, hey, this is a good team, I'm actually going to say it's not one of my favorite teams, because I feel like the running backs are so old with Derrick Henry and Leonard Fournette. I'm actually kind of scared of it, because I feel like, and James Conner, that's like 3 guys that I wouldn't be shocked if they were all hurt at the end of the year and didn't play again.
Mhm.
Like, it wouldn't shock me if they're all bad. Luckily, Brees Hall is part of the running back group, so there is some young youth there. But and I see Hunt on the team, and I see J.D. McKissick on the team, so it feels like a really old team. But I will say this: that this is probably the best receiving core that I have. But I must have spent more of my assets on receivers because it has Chase, Deontay, and Devonta Smith. So I will be able to focus on the running back position in years to come. But having said that, I want you guys to think back at rookie drafts. How easy is it to get a great wide receiver crop from any draft position as compared to trying to find running backs from any draft position? If you don't lose or get a high pick, you don't get running backs in most
Yeah.
cases. Like
Or
just
quarterback.
or quarterbacks. I mean, you
Right.
can get lucky with Jalen Hurts in the second, or maybe Herbert a late first, but you don't get very many cracks. Where wide receivers, there's always cracks in the late first, early second. Every year there's cracks. Justin Jefferson, Jerry Jeudy, C.D. Lamb. There's just crack. That was 2020, and then there was Pittman and Higgins, and then we have cracks in 21 with guys like Jamar Chase or Devonta Smith or Waddle. I mean, there was just cracks at guys. We were always even Bateman, another crack at a guy. We got cracks. Now this year, we have cracks at guys like whether that be any of the big 3, London, Burks, or Wilson, but maybe even Williamson or Olave, or some of those guys are going to be good, or even Dotson or one of the guys like that they're going to be around, even Bell, or there's going to be cracks at guys there where I feel like you're going to slide back when you start trying to go after tight ends or running backs. You need that position. You're going to find yourself drafting for need and then reaching for stuff that you just are going to overpay for. So I always like to keep my team very young at running back and then very receiver needy, feeling like I can always find one of them, just with sheer numbers. So that's kind of where that one is. And then the 4th team, local, this team is kind of fun for me because nobody ever would trade with me, and I still feel like the team came out pretty good. And I did a little survey with it. It drafted 14 quarterbacks, so you can only imagine what people were saying, and then nobody would trade with me. And yet this team, the 2 quarterbacks at the top of the list are Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and then it has Deshaun Watson when he returns to play as the 3 top quarterbacks. So as you can see there, that's like basically 3 top 5 quarterbacks that I just hold, and that means that they can't be in other people's lineup. But then you're like, well, the rest of the team has to stink. Well, kind of, except for we start 1 tight end, and that happens to be Kyle Pitts. So how bad is that position? And then,
Yeah.
well, okay, maybe the running backs are bad, and I'd say, well, we're going to try out Brees Hall, who's 21 years old. We'll see how that works for us. And I mean, that's only 1, but we've got Gainwell that could become something. And then we'll keep drafting. We'll keep drafting and get that running back. And then the receivers seem to be pretty strong with Sky Moore and Gabe Davis, Michael Pittman, Terry McLaurin. I mean, there's enough there that there's pieces. And so what 14 quarterbacks with no trades has turned into is the number 1 overall pick in fantasy football with Josh Allen, number 4, roughly with Lamar Jackson, and number 12 with Pitts, number 16 with Watson. So you start looking at those kind of things. It's got 4 of the top 16 players in a startup dynasty draft in 2022. So for as bad as people view all those quarterbacks, and yes, 3 of those 4 were quarterbacks, but you still have Michael Pitt or Kyle Pitts in there, and then you start to have guys that really could be. Now McLaurin fell out of the top 60 this year, but he has been. I mean, and it wouldn't shock anybody if Davis was a top 60 pick, at some point, a 5th round pick. And so there are spots for those kind of guys. So I guess I'm going to turn the floor over to you guys and just to kind of add whatever after we've just kind of discussed these 4 teams and a quarterback all in. That's the philosophy. But I feel like it's more than that. It's more of a fade wide receiver philosophy, and just for the simple fact that I feel like we can get them later. We can always get them at a later time and not jeopardize the team.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, and especially I noticed here in the your local fantasy football goofballs roster here that you have, like you were saying, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson as your top 3, but you also have Jared Goff, also Tua, Davis Mills. The depth there, and those players aren't on your opponent's teams. So that those are points on your bench, but they're not on your opponent's roster. They're active
lineup against you.
Yes,
So
yes.
And they refuse to trade with you, so they'll just stay on your lineup.
Absolutely.
And their thought is, well, you could get, if you traded them for pennies on the dollar, you get better. But I guess I'm thinking, well, not necessarily. Not if I give you something that beats me. Like that hardly makes any sense. And I guess I think that I'm only one real player away with Breece Hall as one running back. So yeah, I would like to have another running back, but I'm only really one rookie draft away from having another stud. And then all of a sudden, I really don't need to make that trade. I just need to be patient. So this was the first team of the 4 that we looked at that we say, man, it kind of feels like one player away at running back. Mm-hmm. It hasn't all because we haven't gotten those trades. But if it takes 4 years to turn it into a juggernaut, is that I don't think that Josh Allen's going to fall off the wagon next year and be terrible.
Yeah.
I look at the top end of this team and say, you know what, there's no real incentive to trade on the cheap because I don't think they're going anywhere. I don't think that we're going to wake up and be if Josh Allen is the number 5 pick overall next year, that's okay. Your team's still okay. He doesn't have to be first. I'm okay with that. But, we'll just keep him and keep him for 5 years, and see how many of those 5 we can win with. And winning's elusive. I will say that too. I try hard to win every game. I really do. People think, oh, you're just tanking. No, I'm kind of competitive. Brad can probably, and in our parting words, Brad, do you think I'm a competitive guy? What do you think from your growing up days? I'm fairly competitive. I don't like to lose. And I'd just say I try to win. I always try to win. But I guess I'm able to understand that losing is the process. As long as my process is taking me in the right direction, I'm okay with that. I can be patient to get to the win. And so that's the strength. So yeah, it's been fun talking about all this, and I will say a couple things coming up in the Clownhead community I'm really excited about. Of course, DraftKings for all the Clownhead members. We're going to have a DraftKings Beat the Clown, so you guys can really come at me and throw some money on the main slate each week and see if you can beat me, because I'm going to beat you guys because that's what I do. And you guys can really rib at me and throw that all over the social media networks when you beat me. So that'll probably happen. And we're also going to have awards for every single one of Clownhead 1 through 5. So our winners of those 5 will get a plaque, and going to have a plaque for each of the Elite 8 winners of those divisions, as well as the Final 4 will have some plaques and trophies for those positions. So wanted to just plump that out there as part of the Clownhead community. Those are things that are happening. And once we get Clownheads 4 and 5, which we have filling as we speak, so only approximately about 15 more members can be part of the Clownhead community total for the whole 2022 season. That's it. Once we're done with Clownhead 5, there will be no more Clownheads this year. Just not you can't get in. So would encourage you guys, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button on the channel, and join the Clownhead community for those last 2 leagues, and be part of the action, be part of the fun. And if you do miss out, then obviously 2023 is your time, but just encourage you to jump in before it's too late and enjoy everything we have going on. Special thanks to Justin, Brad, you guys, the co-commissioners of this crazy endeavor that we have, and looking forward to next week coming back to you guys as well with 4 more teams that were drafted in 2020, and then maybe more of a conclusive spot of the Elite 8. We should probably be about done next week and be able to kick off something else that we have just exclusively for the Clownhead community as well. And until next time, we'll be back with you next week. Have a good one, guys.
You too.